Today we're going to make chocolate zucchini bread. As you can see, I have most of my mise en place lined up. When you start to put together your recipe, always arrange your mise en place in the same order that you're going to use it in the recipe and double check it before you start cooking. The first thing we need to do is to get 1 cup of grated zucchini. So I washed this zucchini. I need a box grater. I dried it with a paper towel. And now I'm going to grate on a plate. I'm going to grate 1 cup onto a plate so I can easily take the zucchini and measure it in the measuring cup. You're going to use the large side of the grater, and you're going to use your finger and go with the grain so you can get all the zucchini off, and so you don't waste any, you can get the zucchini out of the inside as well. There's 2 reasons that we use zucchini. Number 1, this helps keep the bread moist. And number 2, it provides a little bit of extra texture, not much of a taste. Next, we need 2 cups of all-purpose flour. I already gathered 1 cup, but I'd like to remind you how we measure dry ingredients. For things like flour and sugar, we scoop with a spoon, we overfill our cup, and with the back of a knife we scrape. Never stick the measuring cup into the bucket. You'll get your fingers in there and it'll be cross-contamination. We have a 1/4 cup of cocoa powder. We have 3/4 of a cup of granulated sugar. We measured it the same way we did the flour. We have a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Don't forget, salt is a flavor enhancer. We have a 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder. I'd like to show you how we measure that. Baking powder and baking soda usually come in a container that has its own lip, so you can stir and scrape. You also have a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. Next, the recipe calls for 3/4 cup of oil. We're using just plain vegetable oil, not a lot of flavor. We want a neutral flavor. And as a reminder, the way we measure liquid ingredients, we get down on a knee and make sure we go eye level. We also need 6 ounces of milk. So I'm going to put them in the same container. I turn the container so I can see where the 12 ounces is. And I'm going to pour eye level until I hit exactly 12 ounces. 6 ounces or 3/4 cup of oil and 6 ounces of milk. We need 2 eggs. Eggs help bind the ingredients. They also provide color and flavor. We need a teaspoon of vanilla extract, and we need a 1/2 cup of chocolate chips. We also need 1 tablespoon of flour, and I'm going to show you what that's for in a second. Okay, let's start making the chocolate zucchini bread. The first thing we need to do is sift all of the dry ingredients. There's 3 reasons that we sift. The first one is the obvious one. It helps to mix all the ingredients. The second one is if there's any type of foreign particle in your dry ingredients, you'll be able to sift it out. And the third one is it aerates your dry ingredients. So I put in the flour, cocoa powder, the sugar, baking soda, salt is a flavor enhancer, baking powder. Why do we use baking soda and baking powder? They're both leavening agents. And a little bit of cinnamon. When you sift, hold the sifter over the bowl and shake it against your hand so you're not getting your dry ingredients all over the table. Sometimes the moisture from the air allows the flour to form little lumps, so you could press that right through. You can also take a spoon and mix your ingredients up. The next thing we want to do is just to break our eggs up a little bit, make it easier once they go into the batter, and we're going to pour the vanilla into it just to make that a little bit easier as well. The last thing we're going to do before we start making the batter is we're going to take our chocolate chips and we're going to toss those into an additional tablespoon of flour. That's something that's not in the recipe. You can make a notation of. Why do we do this? The flour coats the chocolate chips and helps them from sinking to the bottom of the pans. Okay, let's make the batter. The first thing we're going to do is put the 1 cup of grated zucchini into the mixer. Now, if you don't have zucchini, you can use shredded carrots. They work just as well. We're going to put the oil and the milk in with the zucchini, and this will be the base of our batter. We're going to take a paddle attachment. We're going to take the paddle attachment and we're going to put the mixer on low and thoroughly mix our ingredients. Turn the mixer off and we're going to add 1 egg at a time. We want the egg to fully incorporate before we add the next egg. Now that the batter is thoroughly mixed, we're going to add our dry ingredients in 2 or 3 batches. And we're going to jog the power switch on the mixer. If we don't, it's going to look like a Three Stooges episode. There's going to be flour all over the kitchen. Now that it looks like the batter is almost completely mixed, you can see the powdery flour residue around the edges. You need a rubber spatula and you need to scrape right down to the bottom of the bowl. You want all that powdery flour mixed in before you start portioning. Now that the batter is completely mixed and we use the rubber spatula on the edges, we're going to pour in our chocolate chips. We're going to jog the mixer and mix those just until they're incorporated. If not, we're going to break the chocolate chips up and we'd like them whole. Before you take your paddle attachment off, use a rubber spatula or a bowl scraper and make sure you get all the batter off of the paddle attachment. Now we need to spray our loaf pans. This recipe will make 4 small loaves. It'll make 1 large loaf pan if that's what you have at home, or it'll make about 16 to 18 muffins. So when we spray over a countertop. If we spray over the floor, you'll get oil on the floor and you could slip. And you're just going to spray a little bit. These are Teflon pans. We're just going to put a little bit on the bottom and just a little bit on the sides. We don't want to go all the way up to the top. The batter, as it rises, is going to need to grab something to hold so the center can rise. The most accurate way that you could portion these loaf breads is to use a scale. You'd simply zero the scale out and portion these to an equal amount in each pan. However, not everybody has a scale at home. So let me show you a simple way that's almost as accurate. I have a portion scoop here. I'm going to fill it to the top. I have my 4 loaf pans lined up in a rectangle. So if any spills, it may spill into the other one instead of making a mess on my counter. I'm going to go around and put 1 scoop in each pan. Now I'm going to start back with the first one again. Okay, there's 2 things left that I really want to show you. I want you to use your rubber spatula to get every single bit of batter out. You could hold your bowl on an angle and use the flat side of the rubber spatula. You want to get every single bit of this batter out. Your bowl should look like it was just washed. But I also want to show you something else. Any of the batter that's spilled inside of the pan, you need to take a cloth or a paper towel and completely wipe it. There should be no batter on the sides. If there is, it'll burn. This recipe does not call for streusel topping. In a previous video, we made blueberry and chocolate chip muffins with a streusel topping. It's just a simple crumb topping. I had a little bit left over from some muffins we made yesterday. So I wanted to show you what we would do. We would simply take the streusel topping and sprinkle it over the loaf before we put it on the sheet pan to bake, because we don't want the crumbs to fall over onto the sheet pan and burn. One more thing we could do if you don't have streusel topping is you could take some sugar in the raw if you have it at home and sprinkle it on top of your loaves. Not too much, but it'll give your loaf breads a little bit of an extra crust as it caramelizes, some texture, and some flavor. Let's get them in the oven. I have a 350 degree preheated oven. I'm going to put the loaf breads in They're going to bake for approximately 25 to 35 minutes. We're going to check them halfway through. So I'm going to set my timer for about 12 minutes. We'll check them. We'll spin the pan in the oven to give them equal heat. And we'll set our timer for another 12 minutes and check them with a toothpick. Okay, I spun them after 12 minutes, cooked them for another 13, maybe 15 minutes. And they look done. Let's check them out. The first way that we think that they might be done is by smell. They have a different smell. They smell like a cooked product. They smell delicious. You smell the caramelized sugar. That's one indication that they're done or almost done. The second is to take a toothpick, put it into the thickest part of the bread. If it comes out clean, and it has, it's done. And the third way is to press on it slightly. If it springs back, just like if I'm pressing on this part of my palm, if it springs back, it's done. What we are going to do is put them on a cooling rack so they cool a little quicker. We're going to take a palette knife and just loosen them up. Now that we've loosened them with a palette knife, we let them sit for about 20 minutes so that they've cooled off, so don't burn yourself. I'm going to loosen it one last time. And it's cool enough. I'm just going to pop it out with my hand. There you go, chocolate zucchini bread.